Hello, Sean. Thank you for joining us today on First to Third podcast, and we're happy to have you. Do you mind introducing yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, if you don't mind.
Yeah, great. So my name's Sian Johnson. I'm probably best known as a sex and intimacy coach that works with men, but I also teach the Wheel of Consent, which is about limits, desires, and boundaries. And I also teach tantric massage, having been a tantric massage practitioner for 8 years. And I also teach female practitioners, women practitioners, how to work with men.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And so before we dive into all of this, you were successful in arts, marketing, and several other spheres. Then all of a sudden you decided to, pivot. Was there something that happened to make you just leave all of that and then transition into something that not a lot of people would just randomly say, I want to do this? Can you, what was that like? What was the turning point?
Yeah, I mean, I've basically had a crisis. Some people might call that a nervous breakdown. Some people might call it, I don't know, something else. But essentially, I got to a point in my life where my life is not working in the
Okay.
way that I want to, and I don't feel like I have a purpose. The work that I'm doing feels hollow. So I turned to some friends to kind of just express what I was going through. And one of them said, well, if you could do anything in the world, and this is a really great coaching question for anybody that's listening, if you could
Okay.
do anything in the world that you wanted to do, that you didn't have to worry about how much money it cost to train, and you didn't have to worry about how much you would earn, what would it be that you wanted to do? What's your heart's desire? And I took a couple of minutes and then I just came up, I don't know, I'd be some kind of sex therapist. I mean, I love sex, I love bodies, I'm curious about how people do it, how people feel about it, and how I experience it and how partners experience it. And I've explored kink and tantra and all kinds of aspects of sex and intimacy. So I just said some kind of sex coach, sex therapist. And so I took it from there and I decided to explore the tantric route. So I went and studied tantra first and then had some really amazing experiences and a lot of growth as part of that, and then learned to do tantric massage, and the tantric massage funded all of my other training. And now I am a sex coach, sex therapist, and a sexual partner surrogate, and I love it all. I feel passionate. More passionate about this career than than any other career I've had, and I've had a lot. I've had a lot of jobs. So, but this is the longest one I've had. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually very amazing because that pivot is actually quite, a lot of people are looking to have what you had in your previous, areas of life, and all of a sudden you just let all of that go to do this, and I think that's amazing. And so, what has it been like? Because I know that the space that you're in is not a space that is, spoken about so loudly. There is usually so much caution. It's not something that a lot of people want to speak out loud. So, how has it been? In terms of your experience, the space so far, how it has been in terms of your experience.
Think I think it's really interesting that before I came into this field, I really struggled with my boundaries and being able to say yes to things that I wanted and being able to say no to things that I didn't want, which is a very simplistic way of saying I was very much focused on being a people pleaser. So I would go along with what other people wanted because then that would make them like me, which is a common pattern for a lot of human beings. But what this work has taught me is about how when I am strong in knowing what I want and what I don't want, when I'm in, and I call that being in your power. When you're in your power, it's so much easier to be able to make choices that feel right and proper for you. And one of the things coming into this industry is that in the beginning I was still in my people pleasing, but being in this industry has taught me in so many different ways how important it is for me to be empowered in my decision making, because when we're not empowered in our decision making, we end up involved in things that we don't really want to be involved in. And that happened to me quite a lot in the beginning. I was working with clients that were unsuitable, I was overgiving, I was getting exhausted, and sometimes I'd end up in tricky situations. And that happened a couple of times, but it was great. They taught me great lessons about how to be more in my power. And in a sense, this is what I teach other people, is to how to be in your power so that the choices that you make feel more aligned with who you are as a human being.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense because a lot of us are actually trying to make someone happy. If it's our parents, our friends, and we end up taking paths that we'd rather not take. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And so you decided to go into the industry and you decided to, focus on men. Is there a reason for that? Was there a reason why you decided, I'm just going to leave the female gender or everybody in general. Let me just, focus on the male aspect. Was there a reason behind that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I would say when I started in tantric massage, men will pay for pleasure and pleasurable experiences. And this is a very broad, not everybody's like this, but a great deal of men will
Yeah.
pay for pleasurable experiences. They don't have a problem with that. Women are less inclined to pay for pleasurable experiences because they prioritize other things in their lives. So most of my clients were men. So by the time I got to training in working with all genders, I did all of my case studies with a right mix of genders, non-binary, trans, women, men. So I worked with all genders when I was doing my training. And afterwards, actually, I started to really gravitate to working with men because that's who I resonate mostly with.
Hmm.
That's who I respond well to. That's the people that respond well to me. And so my practice expanded to working with just men. I specialized in working with men. And, working with women now, teaching women to how to work with men is is a is really amazing because working with women is so different.
Yeah.
Women, once they commit, they're absolutely on board and will move through the difficult things to get to where they want to be. Whereas for men, a lot of them, when they come onto working with me, a lot of them struggle because a lot of men are facing challenges that they've never had to face before. So for men, it can be a real challenge to work with me because they have to, feel emotions and step into moving through their shame and, things that they might not have expected. It's a real challenge for a lot of men. Whereas when I'm working with women, most of the time they've done that stuff already.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's fascinating the difference between the genders.
Yeah, and speaking about that, how do you get them to trust you? I mean, there's got to be some sort of trust for them to open up and share, that part of
Yes.
them. And of course, men, in some sense, they're usually protective of that part of them. So how do you get them to
Yeah.
trust you? So, yeah, how exactly do you get them to open up to you? I'm curious.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I think trust is a two-way street because I don't work with everybody who wants to work with me, partly because there's quite a robust process to work with me. So first of all, they have to make and arrange a call, and then we have the call and we discuss what issues they might be experiencing and whether I might be able to help. And during that call, I would say half of the men that I speak to on the calls either aren't ready or the issue is something they need to work through something else before they come to work with me, or perhaps their issue is medical and I'm not a medical practitioner.
Yeah.
So I would say to them, you need to go to the GP and have a look at this kind of, whether that's this issue or a medication issue or something. So I would say about half of my calls end up in with clients going somewhere else, or and I think that's really ethical. But when you're having the conversation from a point of view of what do you need rather than how can I get you to spend money with me, that in itself builds a whole lot of trust because they feel
Hmm.
confident that I'm not just screwing them for the money, basically. So that starts from the consultation call. And then I think I have to trust them as much as they trust me. And I think I'm quite good at building trust with people who are ready to step into the kind of work that I offer. Yeah, I think there tends to be more of an issue of men trusting themselves
Okay.
rather than trusting me. Yeah, a lot
Mm,
of men don't trust themselves and trust their strength and trust their resilience and trust their ability to move through difficult things. And they do that with me and they come out trusting themselves an awful lot more.
okay. And so have there been cases where, maybe they have issues with their partners are not cool with the men, having sessions with you? Is that a thing? Has that ever happened? Or,
Yeah, another good question. I would say um, I always talk to the men when they come to work with me about if they're in relationships, about whether they're going to tell their partner or not. And I would say most of my clients are either single or separated or divorced.
hmm,
And
okay.
the ones that are in relationships, some of them start off thinking they can't tell their partner. Partners are not stupid. Women know their partners really well and they know
Yeah.
when something is changing. And if I'm doing my job correctly, then things will start to change. So I always encourage the men to tell their partners when they feel comfortable enough to. And if they don't, that's their choice. I wouldn't disclose anything to anybody, but I have had several clients who've kind of got halfway through and they've gone, I've told my partner because she's been asking me why things are so different, why things have improved in the bedroom, or why I'm such more of an engaged partner now than I used to be. And so I told her that I've been having sex therapy and yeah. So it's quite interesting. And I'm always curious about how it will unfold, particularly when people are in a relationship.
Yeah, I'm guessing it goes well, and well, anyways, just make sure that happens. And so, coming to the practice in itself, you've been in this field for a couple of years, a decade and more.
10
What
years.
has,
10
yeah,
years. Yeah.
yeah, that's a whole lot. That well done, well done. Uh,
Yeah.
what has been the most consistent, would I say, issue for men when it comes to their sexual life? I'm sure you've come across several of them. Is there one that keeps on coming up over and over and over again? And how do you help them through it?
Yeah. So the more I've moved into this work, the more I realize that there's a commonality between sexual dysfunctions for men. So, premature ejaculation, as it's called, or early ejaculation, which is slightly more a friendlier way of saying it. So, early ejaculation or delayed ejaculation, um, or difficulties with erections, and some people can't ejaculate at all, or some people can ejaculate when they self pleasure but they can't ejaculate when they're experiencing penetration, all of those kind of things. It kind of comes down to two things. The first thing is it's the nervous system in some way. When Unless it's a medical issue, if there's a medical issue, then that needs to be dealt with through the medical profession. But if it's not a medical issue, if there's no things wrong physiologically, then it tends to come down to two things. The first thing is nervous system awareness, which means in some way that man doesn't feel safe. Now, it could be because there's sexual shame. There could be because there's stories playing in his head. He's making meaning about things, or maybe he's having sex with somebody that also doesn't feel safe. So his nervous system can't relax. Maybe he's trying to have makeup sex, but the makeup sex doesn't feel good because, you know, it might be on the surface resolved with his partner, but actually internally it's not. He doesn't feel safe. So there's psychological reasons why the nervous system doesn't feel safe, and that's what we work with. So we work two strands. What's going on in your nervous system? What's going on psychologically? And what can you feel in your body? Are you connected to the sensations in your body? Or do you only connect to the sensations in your body when you're using mind-based stimulus, like, for example, porn or fantasy or
Mhm.
any of those kind of things? So that's the primary one. What's happening that disturbs your system so much that you associate sex with fear, and fear sets your nervous system off. It's like an alarm bell. So there's that. And the other thing that increasingly is coming to the fore is porn use, the use of pornography.
Yeah.
I think a lot of sexual dysfunction comes from watching pornography.
Oh,
Yeah.
and how's that? How exactly does that cause that?
Well, I make the distinction between mind-based stimulus, so what we're using with our minds or we're watching on the screens is giving us mind-based arousal. So that stimulates the thought processes, which then stimulate arousal. When you're using porn or fantasy or memory or erotica or images to encourage arousal, then you're not connected to the systems in your body. It's not a holistic experience, it's purely a mind based experience.
Okay.
And then so if you're doing a lot of that, when you have connection with a real person, it's not going to be the same at all
True.
because your body is offline, basically. You're not connected to your body. You're so used to using mind based stimulus that you're disconnected from your body. And that's where a lot of the problems come in. I am not against pornography or mind based stimulus, but what I do ask clients to do when they come to work with me is to abstain from mind based stimulus so that they can so it gives the chance the body to recalibrate so that you start to explore sensation. You start to notice arousal when you do something simple like stroke your wrist in a particular way. And so I get them to, or invite them to explore their whole body as a pleasure playground rather than the mind as the only source of arousal. And that's been phenomenal. I've had phenomenal responses from
Oh,
men who have gone cold turkey on the porn front, and then of course they'll experience a dip in arousal for a little while, but what happens is that bounces back once your body's recalibrated, and arousal starts to come back with much
yeah.
more vitality and aliveness. And not only does that happen for them when they're self-pleasuring, but it happens when they're with their partner as well.
Okay.
So, and that's essentially what they want, but the route to it is not what they expect. It's by abstaining from porn use for a while.
Yeah, and how easy is it for them, especially those that are kind of like addicted to it? How easy is it for them to just break out of it or to just stop? Because that can be a thing as well in terms of,
Yeah,
abstinence.
it's a challenge. It's a challenge. It's a big challenge for a lot of men because you have to ask what they're addicted to. Is it an actual addiction or is it a process in the body where they are? So I'm going to rewind a little bit and say the question has to be, why are they using pornography?
Okay.
Which might seem like a stupid question, but actually, a lot of men will use it to distract themselves in the same way that people will choose alcohol or will choose gambling or they will choose food. All of those things have in common is that they create dopamine. Pornography creates dopamine, and then there's an ejaculation, and you get a bunch of other chemicals running through your body. And what that does is it can relieve tension, it can relieve anxiety, and it can de-stress the body because you've got all these beautiful chemicals rolling around your body.
Yeah.
My approach is what's the trigger for the porn use? What's the trigger for the alcohol? What's the trigger for the gambling? It's all the same thing. What's the trigger? And if you work with the trigger, you no longer need the substance in the same way. So that's something
Yeah.
else that I do is like, oh, what are you noticing when you go to use when you pick up your phone to use social media or you pick up your phone to watch porn. So there's no judgment. It's just helping people to understand what the triggers are and then to set an intention or a goal that feels really exciting for them, the thing that they want more than anything. So between understanding what the triggers are, which is why I don't want this behavior anymore, setting an intention, this is the kind of sex life
Yeah.
and the kind of relationships that I want. Between those two things, people will often find the courage to move beyond the addiction into a different way of being.
Okay. And would you say that is a sex toy is a better alternative to watching porn? Are they on the opposite side? Is it the same thing? what are your take on that? What are your takes on
So sex toys, I think sex toys have a place in the bedroom. Definitely. I would say it depends on how they're being used. Like any tool, you know, it's a tool for pleasure. If it's being used for pleasure from a place of wanting to explore pleasure, that's great. If they're being used as a substitute for pleasure, if that makes sense, it's a little bit like the porn use. I'm just using this to get off quick. Then they're probably, they're probably not, I mean, they're doing a job, but they're probably not being used in a way that I would say is entirely useful. They're supposed to complement sensation in the body rather than substitute for sensation in the body. I hear a lot of people say that overactive sex toy use can actually desensitize the body. I'm all about resensitizing the body. So actually slowing down and feeling more. That's kind of my approach so that you don't get that frustration when the battery runs out or all of those things.
Okay, that makes sense. And I mean, there's an entire industry that is feasting off, this fear of, low sexual confidence. People are creating sex enhancers. There's this company making drugs, libido boosters, and, just trying. There's an entire industry for that. Are there any implications to that? Taking their pills, their powders that people take just to enhance their sexual drive. Are there any implications long term, short term, even for us as a species?
Yeah, I hear you. What I would what I would always try first is I would always try the body-based approach first and to see when we create the right conditions for our bodies to respond in the way that they're meant to, which is, with arousal, with pleasure, with ecstatic states of arousal. Those things are possible for most people, unless there's neurological damage or physiological damage, such as the effects of diabetes, for example, people with cardiovascular issues, then I would always suggest trying the body based approach first. And if that doesn't work for whatever reason, then yeah, a shot of Viagra or a daily dose of Cialis or something like that might be the thing that supports you. I've worked with men who've needed implants, penile implants,
Oh wow.
in order to gain an erection. But just because they've got an implant, that doesn't mean to say that they can't have an incredible sex life. And often the shame around the implant is the thing that still stops men from experiencing pleasure and joy. And so I do work with men with implants who are like, I've got this thing and it's really impacted my ability to feel okay about myself. I'm just like, it's just a tool. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Where can you experience more pleasure? It's
Mhm.
just about unlocking it all.
Yeah. And you have this place in your writing where you say that sexual confidence isn't actually about the sex, but emotional intelligence, the way you carry yourself. When did you get to realize that? Because I don't think a lot of people understand it from that perspective. They feel that something has to be wrong physically or medically. So how did you figure that out? And for those that are listening, how would you for men that are currently listening to this, what would you have to say to them as regards that?
It's interesting because more and more and more, I'm like, you think it's about this thing, you think it's about, making your cock work. And yeah, it is about that. That's an important part of your pleasure experience. But what's getting in the way of making your cock work? Why, and that's the fascinating thing is we are not just our body and we are not just our mind and we're not just our spirit either, whatever you choose to call spirit, God, or angels, or whatever it is. I don't put a label on that, but when all those three things are aligned, that's when you're working at your optimum. And sexual dysfunction is often, I've discovered more and more and more, sexual dysfunction is often a signal by the body to say, this is all out of alignment. You're working 60 hours a week. You're stressed. You're drinking too much. You're not in a healthy, happy relationship and I am protesting, and it's the body's protest. It's a signal that something isn't
Mhm.
right. So either it's a signal that something physiologically is not right, it's often the first sign of cardiovascular disease or diabetes or a number of other issues. So if you rule those out, then it's got to be psychological and lifestyle. So it's body, mind, and soul, because you cannot separate them. We are one. And this isn't just some woo stuff I've pulled out of the air. It's not like hippy dippy shit. It's none of that. It's actually scientifically evidenced now more and more that we thoughts influence our body, influence our the way
Yeah.
we show up in the world. So it's we're all entirely integrated. So I don't just look at what's happening with your genitals. I look at what's happening holistically at the whole of your experience. More and more I'm finding that, especially when you take the nervous system into account. It's huge, huge.
Yeah. I think that affects every areas of our life as well. I mean, if you're feeling stressed out, performance reduce in almost every areas, not just your sexual life as well. So I think that makes sense to, come to that conclusion. And so talk to us about the wheel of consent. I know it's something that you're on about. So what's that exactly? How did you come about it? And,
Yeah, great. The wheel of consent. I love the wheel of consent. And the thing about the wheel of consent, like any new, discovering anything new, you think you've got it and then you do it again, like the training. I did the training loads. Like the next time I did it, oh, it made a little bit more sense. And then the next time I did it, it makes even more sense. And even now when I'm teaching it, I've been doing it for 8 years now in one form or another. Yeah. And even every time I teach it, like this online course I've got going on at the moment, learning new things all the time about myself, about other people. It's fascinating. And on the surface, it's a fairly simple concept. We break consent down into understanding who is doing what and who is it for.
okay.
So I could be touching my partner, but there's two ways of touching my partner. Am I touching their body for my pleasure,
Mm,
or am I touching their body for their pleasure?
mm.
Does that make sense? Who
It
is
does.
doing what?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
who is it for? Because when we get a real sense of that, that means we can make more choices about what we want. So we get used to noticing in our body, do I have a yes to this? Or asking ourselves, what do I really want right now? Like, oh, what do I really want like right now? And we practice that a lot. And it might be, I want an ice cream. I want to lie on the beach. I want to feel the grass under my feet. I want somebody to hold me and hug me. And we start off by noticing what it is that we want. Then we find a way of communicating that because we start to notice what we want in our body. So when I'm presented with a body, it might be my partner or somebody else's, I look at that body and I will notice what it is that I want and I will make a request. And then I invite them to notice that request and to feel into whether that's something they want too. And it's those nuances of conversation that really truly build consent. And that's what the training's about, is teaching you how to do that, to listen to what you want, what you truly want, and then to be able to ask for it. And then if you get a yes, experiencing the joy of that. And if you get a no, feeling resilient, because a lot of people see no, particularly men. If they receive a no, they take the no as like
Yeah.
injury. They feel like they're going to die. And that's because of shame. So when we do the training, you learn to hear a no and be grateful for the no, because great, thank you. I don't have to go for dinner with somebody who doesn't want to go to dinner with me. I
So,
don't have to have sex with the person that doesn't really want to have sex with me. Thank you for telling me no. Great. That's wonderful. It's fabulous. I love the Wheel of Consent. It changed my world, honestly. And of course, I use a lot of Wheel of Consent stuff in my sex coaching. So I would highly recommend it for anybody. It's life changing.
yeah. I think most of the things that you teach can actually be applied to every other, areas of our life as well. Because now that you mention it, I don't want to be friends with someone who doesn't want to be friends with me. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And so, coming out of that a little bit. you now coach women to coach men. How has that been so far so good? And what was the intention behind it? Starting to teach women. Is it more of passing, about passing your ideas to people, or continuity, or just another branch of what you're doing? That's about
Yeah, thank you. So this came about because I've done body to body work. That means sexual partner surrogacy. That means intimacy with men as part of a coaching practice. So they learn the techniques, they work with my body, they get to practice that techniques while I'm coaching them. It's a very skilled job, very, very skilled. But my body has started to say, I don't want to do this anymore because remember, I'm a body worker, so I listen to my body.
it.
So my body is telling me I no longer want to do this work. So it took me a little while, but I brought that kind of aspect of my work to a close. I do still do sex coaching, but I do it online now, and I have a whole program of tools and techniques with videos and PDFs and books and all kinds of stuff. So and then I have live coaching sessions with people. So that's how I teach men sex coaching now. That's how I sex coach men. But I still have all of these resources, and I am still being asked for body to body work. So I was like, who can I refer clients to who can do this kind of work, but do it with the depth of integrity and the skill and training that I have? There was very few people I could confidently refer men to who I knew could give the service that I would give. So it was like, and I know also that there are a lot of women after the Epstein files and the 62 million and all of the other sex scandals that have come out recently. There's a lot of women going, okay, men need help, and I can help them with this, but I don't know how. And so those two things coming together, my dissatisfaction with, no longer wanting to do this work, but I have all of these skills. Um, more men coming to me for sex coaching and wanting body to body work, and then there not being women to refer to. It's just like it all came together at the same time. And so I haven't started the coaching program yet, but I'm
Oh,
writing it
okay.
at the moment, and it's just amazing. It starts in September. I'm just so excited. I cannot wait to start teaching this. We've got so many women interested as well, and really amazing women coming through as well, coming through to work on the training. So I'm very excited. And it means we can reach more men. If
Yeah,
I train
yeah,
to work with men in this way, that's hundreds more men every year that can access that
yeah.
service. So just very exciting.
Yeah. It's going to be a physical training, yeah, for the women. They're going to be with in person, or is it going to be virtual as well?
It's an online training, and we have in person intense weeks. The beauty of the online training is that all the materials or all the lessons and the learning is all online. So they'll do a week of learning, then they have a coaching session, then they have learning and a coaching session. And then we've got, depending on which level they want to train to. So if they just do the first block, which is term 1 of 12 weeks, they'll be qualified to coach people without body touch. So they can do a 12-week training program with somebody, no problem at all. If they do 24 weeks, they can coach men and include two-way touch, but not penetration, not penetrative sex. If they want to learn how to do full-on sexual partner surrogacy, that's a full year training. And we have in-person sessions at the end of term 2 and at
Okay.
the halfway through term 3. So I have to assess their capabilities with real live bodies. So that will be the purposes of the intensives, and I'm looking forward to those as well. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'll keep an eye on that, and I'm sure it will actually go pretty well. So, in 10 years of doing this, is there any part of this that you dread, especially working with men and stuff? Is there any part of this that you just don't want to, do? I'm guessing there are.
I love doing the work. I love it. I love working with people. I love coaching. I love teaching. I love all of that stuff. There's not yeah, there's not one aspect of doing the actual work that I don't like. Not at all. The thing that I like the least is what you end up when you run a business is doing 80% of the time you're doing admin and bookkeeping and emails and messages and marketing, and that stuff can do one.
Yeah,
I want to spend my time working with people. That's what lights me up. I love the work, I really do. But the 80% of all the other,
yeah.
if I could just do the work, I would be so happy.
And speaking of that, how did you manage to show up online? Because I was on your Instagram page and I see that you also put up some videos as well as your LinkedIn as well. How do you manage coaching and being visible online? Because right now everybody says you have to be online, you have to be social so people can find you. How do you how do you balance all of it and how stressful is
I I'm very lucky in that I only fairly recently, actually, I've always had like a virtual assistant who's done a lot of the stuff that I can't do, that I'm not skilled in graphics, for example, or newsletter writing. I can write the newsletter, but putting it together is somebody else's job. And I've updating the website, all of that kind of stuff. I've been very lucky that I had a really good virtual assistant, a friend, um, to do that with me for the past 4 years, I think. And now, because of the increase in social media, and I have to have more social media presence, I now have somebody who helps me with that as well. So, but I still do all of my own emails, my own messages, and I still write all of my own stuff. So it's at some point I'll have to let that go because it takes up a lot of
it?
time. But yeah, the marketing bothers me, really bothers me. I just wish people could find me without having to do all of that.
Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of people dread, and of course, setting systems in place to help with that will go a long way, especially now that you're launching a course. Um, that'll be very, very
Mm.
much needed in the pipeline. Are you stopping anytime soon? Is there? Do you have?
Say again.
Are you stopping all of this anytime soon? Do you have an end date in mind when you're just going to be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to stop. It's time to relax and travel the world. And nope, no.
No, no. I mean, one of the other things I offer is psychotherapy. It's very separate from this work. Gestalt relational psychotherapy is kind of over here, and ethically, it needs to be separate. I mean, the skills I have from the psychotherapy is very helpful in the work that I do, but they do ethically have to be very separate. So I do offer psychotherapy as well. But the one thing that might happen is if I decide I want to reduce my business hours, it would be to let go of the 80%, because as a psychotherapist, you don't need to do all of that marketing and, social media presence and all of those kinds of things. You can just be a psychotherapist and that be okay. It's all of this kind of marketing stuff. There will be a point at which I'll either hand all of it over to somebody so I can just do the work, or I might wind that down at some point and just stay with the psychotherapy. But I've no intention of giving up the coaching and the teaching, because it's useful. People get a lot from it and it lights me up. I get excited about it still.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's beautiful to hear. Not a lot of people can go this far. And so, as we wrap up, I would want you to give advice to two set of people. The first set of people are female coaches like yourself as well, because I've spoken to a bunch of them, and some of them are at the point, let's say, get there 1 year in, 2 years in, and they're not getting the clients that they would want, and so they are thinking of switching to something else, maybe go getting a job and all. That it's actually a reality. So, I would want for you for anyone that's listening to us right now, what would you say to them for someone who has spent 10 years doing this? I want to advise for a woman just starting her coaching journey and struggling.
If you're talking about general coaching, or general coaching skills, because what I offer is quite niche.
Yeah.
Working body to body with men is quite a niche market. But if you're talking about general coaching, it takes time to become a good coach. And I would say give yourself grace to make mistakes, and just be aware that you might not be able to make a living from coaching 100% of the time. So always have
Mm,
a foot in the other job market, even if it's
mm,
part time. If you've got a part-time job somewhere that pays the rent, then you can keep going with the coaching while you gain more skills, while you gain more experience. In a way, one of the most valuable things I've learned is that I thought when I started doing the training, I was doing it so I would become a coach, I would become a sex therapist. What I actually learned fairly early on is while I'm doing the work, I'm also healing. When I'm doing all of the
Mm,
training that I'm doing, I'm also becoming a more fulfilled human being. I'm also living a more authentic life. The coaching that I do is not just giving, I get a lot from it too. I learn about human beings, about myself. So give yourself grace. Give yourself a few years to find your feet. Have another foot in the other job market just to pay your rent or whatever it is that you need to do. And the other thing is find your niche. So my daughter at the moment is stepping into coaching, but she's really clear. She works with people who are in the tech industry that are looking to improve their career or they've got job dissatisfaction. It's very niche, but it works beautifully for her. So she gets excited about what people are talking about because that's what she knows.
mm,
And I would say find the thing that excites you and talk about that with your clients and pull your clients in from there. If you try and think you've got to serve everybody, your marketing will be when you market yourself or when you're meeting clients, you'll think that you have to serve everybody. You're wasting your energy. You need to get really specific about what you're doing. So I would say get really specific about your niche.
okay, thank you. And I hope that, any woman listening actually picks this up and builds a successful career out of this. And then finally, to the men, to the people that you serve, one, one last word for any of them who is actually struggling with their sexual life, right?
I would say that whatever route you take to finding the thing that works for you is it takes an enormous amount of courage to step out of the comfort zone and reach for help. But the longer you leave it, the harder it's going to be. So I would say get your health checked, gather your courage and reach out for support. And you know, it's only shame. Most men feel deeply ashamed about their bodies, where they work, whether they work or whether they don't work, the size, the shape, all of those kind of things. It is only shame. It's
Mm,
one emotion that's keeping you locked into your place. And once you start to talk about things, shame cannot survive in the light. When you start to talk about these things with somebody who understands them, the shame starts to ease. So, yes, it's very difficult to reach out to make contact. But it does get easier. Yeah. The health check thing, I would say any man over 50 should get a PSA test, which measures what's happening with your prostate. So I say to any man over 50, get your PSA levels tested because that shows up in your bloods well before any problems happen with your prostate. So get your PSA tested if you're over 50. And cardiovascular health and vitality, get off your phones, sleep more, eat better, usual things. But yeah,
yeah.
definitely, if you're over 50, get your PSA tested. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Sean. It was really nice having you. Before I let you go,
Thank you.
if anybody wants to reach out to you, where's the best place for them to, where can they find you? How will they contact you?
Yep. www.sianjohnson.com is the best place to start. I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to put that in the show notes as well, so people can access that as well. Thank you so much again, Sean. It was nice having this
You're
conversation
very
with you.
welcome.
We do not take it
Thank
for
you.
granted. Have an amazing
Yeah.
rest of the day.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's been lovely to be here.
Thank you.